My name is Stacey Beal. I am the high conflict relationship coach at O'Connor Family Law. And again, I'm not able to give you legal advice, but I'm happy to point you in the right direction. So today we're going to begin by talking about parenting plans. You may be asking yourself, what is a parenting plan? I already know how to parent. Yes, you know how to parent, but things are now changing in your life and we need to develop a successful parenting plan. So when we talk about a parenting plan, that pertains to a divorce, including children, right? But we want to make sure that children are heard, but also that we are doing in this plan is in their best interest as well. So divorce can affect you and your spouse, but your children shouldn't feel that they're in the middle at any time. So we're going to really break down parenting plans into 6 basic steps. First, we're going to start talking about parenting plans with somebody who you do have great communication with. Then we're going to talk about how to get into people who are not able to communicate as well. So the first step is understanding your child's interest, which is really their physical and emotional needs. You may have answers to what your child's best interests already are, but really take that time and consider what's good for them. Consider how can we roadmap this to really guide them and make the best parenting plan. What are their physical needs? What are their emotional needs? Which is upholding a healthy mental state, maintaining that relationship with both parents, handling their temperament. So some parents consider their child's particular wishes when they're gauging the best interest. That is really age-appropriate stages also impact how much weight we have on the wishes when we're developing this plan. We want to also consider some other important pieces. What is the distance between the parents' homes, as we could be living separately or will becoming living separately? What is the distance from their home to their school, to extracurricular activities, to friends and family? And really, what is the work schedule for each parent? So remember that these are only a few points in concerning your child's best interest that we want to look at. We want to cover other matters that will also be specific to your child or your family. Step 2, choose a parenting plan that works. So nothing good comes out of a particular parenting plan if it's not attainable, right? If we can't make this happen, there is nothing beneficial to developing a plan that's not something we can reach. So your parenting schedule really dictate your family's new routine, give everybody an idea of how much time your child and you are going to spend together. It's an important part of the parenting plan. It's essential that we find a plan that we can stick to. Like I said, that's attainable by both parties. So there's many ways that we can organize a parent schedule and pick a routine that works for your family, depending on your child's needs and both of you as co-parents. It's really important to note that your schedule might change over time, but we wanted to talk about what's meeting your child's needs as they grow and change as well. So a younger child, maybe they'll do better with more frequent visits from both parents. While older children, they might find it easier to manage less frequent changeovers. Many family courts might recommend 50-50 custody, but remember, we're in a 7-day week, so we try to have full weekend availability if we can. We might have bi-weekly rotations. There could be 2 days on, 2 days off, 5 days on, 5 days off. There could be 2 days on, 2 days off, 3-day rotation. There's really lots of different ways. But again, we want to talk about what works best for you, your child, and your family at the time. So parenting schedules with 50-50 are great, but they might not always work for some people. Perhaps you live further from the schools or activities, and so weekdays are difficult during the school year. On top of the regular parenting schedule, it's really important that you don't overlook holidays such as birthdays, extracurricular, Christmas, Easter, any holidays that your family is celebrating. We want to make sure that those are included on how we're going to separate those in our parenting plan so that we don't have to revisit this. Have a plan for communication. And we really need to be able to communicate also during our parenting plan. So we have to assume that the best way to keep in contact with your co-parent and your children is to really share that parenting routine. Once your child starts moving in between 2 different homes, you're also going to face a new challenge of needing to keep important information organized and available to both houses. So you might need a more structured form of communication. We don't want to wait till there's a communication problem. to realize that we need to have this structured communication. As part of the parenting plan, you can really determine how and when your co-parent will stay in touch, share updates about your child. There are many apps also that are beneficial for people to use. You can create that platform. You can manage your parenting plan in the best. So keep in touch with your children. Also, when they're apart from you, that might be part of your parenting plan communication. Are you going to video message daily? Are you going to have phone calls when they're not with you and they're with your other co-parent partner? Know how and when you're going to make a big decision and handle that legal custody. Major life decisions that concern your child are not one that we want to take lightly, such as if you and your co-parent share that legal custody, how are you going to handle some decisions together? So choices that you will confront over time include things about your child's education, maybe medical care, religious practices, extracurricular activities, sporting events, all of that in your parenting plan, where you can really document these initial decisions and come up with a plan. And how are you going to communicate really helps when we're moving forward. So have that plan for important decisions also in case of emergencies. You never want to be in a situation where there's an emergency, but it's also best to be prepared if you are confronted with an emergency that comes up. We also want to add in that we want to talk about the finances for our children, not their personal finances, but no matter how the legal and physical custody and parental responsibilities are shared between the two of you, you really want to talk about the finances for your children to some degree in this plan. Child support is often there to help cover some living expenses and some extras for a child, which is very important, but we want to be clear what your payments do and don't cover in this. It's helpful to have a running log of your children's expenses for the sake of documenting. Even most of the expenses that are covered by child support should be part of the documentation. Each parent can take some knowledge to dictate their household spending depending on the financial piece. So more than just what's covered by child support is going to need to provide assistance, right? We might have sports payments, extra activities. How are we going to cover those? Are they part of the child support, or do we need to share those costs 50-50? So you want to add that to your parenting plan. Step 6, maintain these goals. So once your plan is set into motion, now we need to really keep these specific goals in mind to make this the most perfect parenting plan and be successful. Look at your future. In doing that, we will be able to imagine what your child wants to be able to look back on in this time of their life. Maybe it's less stress, right? Maybe it's having more memories. Adjusting to this new family arrangement, really we want to be a positive memory for your child to look back on. So don't think of this parenting plan about winning or losing, or even providing which parent is more qualified to care for your child. We want to create a goal and be cooperative and flexible co-parent partners. Your child really deserves to have a strong, healthy relationship with you and the other parent. And having working partnerships as a co-parent can really support your child's relationship with both of you. So settling in the parenting arrangement after divorce is not always easy. It's not always quick, and it's not ever done 100% the first time. So we really want to create that plan that works right now for your family with some future plans in. So this all sounds great, right? And it works, but you have to be able to have these discussions with the co-parent that you're working with. What happens if these topics aren't easily discussed between the two of you? So at times we may feel that our soon-to-be ex-spouse isn't an easy parent to work with, right? So how do we make all of what we just talked about successful? How do we come up with that plan? So when we're dealing with someone who is not as easy to communicate with, what do we do? So co-parenting can be a challenge, right? It could feel impossible. Unfortunately, you may have that partner who puts their selfish desires above their parental responsibilities and cares maybe more about themselves and their child's well-being. You're familiar with maybe that they are liars, they manipulate, they're emotional. You're probably dealing with high conflict custody battles. So how do we share custody and come up with an appropriate parenting plan when you're working with someone who is difficult? Don't worry. Being equipped with the right mindset and custody tools, you will develop the strategies to help reduce conflict and eventually co-parent as well. So we need to really visualize this schedule and get a written parenting plan. In some cases, the person you're trying to co-parent with, you might want to successfully share the need to co-parent like it's a business. That's how you may need to treat this. Establish detailed rules, set firm boundaries, document everything. I'm all about documenting, as we said, and I am happy to work with you on how the right way to document really looks and what it entails, because it is a lot of work. But you need to be able to disconnect emotionally. Take care of your child's emotional well-being, right? We want to be a safe parent and really learn how to talk and ignore. So create that detailed parenting plan with this difficult co-parenter, right? That means we have to really have rules for how co-parenting is going to work and the responsibilities. Coming up with a detailed, customized plan is really going to empower you to set firm boundaries with your ex, and it's going to be one of the most important things you can do to make this plan most manageable. So your plan would be tailored to your child's specific needs. Just like when we're working with somebody we can communicate with, it's about the children. We want to really design and protect the child from the effects that your ex might have. So we want to customize this plan. We also have to talk about between parents and between each child during the return time of your child's visit ending. We want to talk about sharing child rearing guidelines. Are we going to talk about how we're going to discipline the same ways? Bedtime routines, curfews, screen time, all those activities as well, so that you're on the same page. We want to talk about making rules for your child's education, medical care, right? We still have all of these topics that need to be discussed, just like prior. So we want to come up with guidelines for sharing and doing all of this on the same page. We want to make sure that rules that parents don't speak negatively about each other in front of the children. We don't want to also ask the children questions to get information about the other parent. That's just not appropriate. Any other rules to facilitate a good co-parenting and a way to protect your child's well-being, we want to add in that parenting plan. Many family courts do have a standard plan that you can use along with things that you want to make sure are included. A parenting time schedule really explains who has custody of the children, when they will be with each parent. Sometimes courts will have it 50-50, but when you're making a schedule, you need to consider ways also to reduce your interaction with that parent. Remember, we're talking about a difficult parent. Longer visits with each parent mean fewer exchanges and less interaction with your ex. So for example, instead of an every weekend schedule, you may consider 4-day visits. The weekend parent really gets the same amount of time with the child, but you only then have to see that ex-spouse every other week. That brings me back to documenting. You can track your actual parenting time and show the judge any evidence or report. So if we have somebody who's not sticking to that parenting time, again, if we're documenting visits and how visits go, how often they are, the dates that your children are with the other parent, we have that information to see any records of traits that might be happening, things that are not sticking to the plan as we came up with and agreed to. We also want to make sure that you're setting a firm communication boundary. We did talk about how to communicate prior with that good co-parenting partner, but now we're talking about people who aren't so easy. So we want to make sure that we're setting these firm boundaries. So establish the firm boundary, stick to the communication boundary. It's essential when you're co-parenting with someone who otherwise they'll be manipulative, right? They will have communication tactics that they try to keep control of you and keep you sucked into their toxic being. So we want to set up rules and know how to talk and know how to put a stop to some of the communication that is happening. So in your parenting plan, again, you would want to set those rules that protect you from unwanted, unnecessary, and unhealthy forms of communication from your ex. Assert that you want to only discuss your child and co-parenting issues with them immediately, but calmly. You need to shut down the attempts to discuss off-limit topics, things that we do not need to have conversation about. We want to shut those down. So set a response time frame, require that they schedule phone calls in advance, know when it's going to happen so there's no anxiety or wondering. Don't engage in an argument. Don't take the bait when they try to reel you in. It's gonna happen. And as you know, some thrive on attention. So often the best thing you can do is ignore that. Instead, really try to try to communicate also with that parent by text or email because we have it in writing. Once again, I will remind you, document everything. The record keeping doesn't end also when the final orders are issued. You never know when you may need to go back into court and modify any of these orders. So it's also important you're prepared with all the documentation related to this co-parenting. This is a big task, right? It becomes manageable and even easier though when you are more organized. You will have note interactions with the other parent, tracking behavior patterns also of your child from when they were with the other co-parenter. We want to record any incidents, behaviors that this may impact on your child. So you might keep a journal that says the date, the title, was it a canceled visit, was it a successful visit? Use an expense tracker in that documenting binder. You want to keep records of your parental expenses, payments to each other as well. You could use that to reimburse the other parent for some shared expense, which really helps you have a business-like dynamic and not have unnecessary communication. It'll help you avoid that. Try your best to be the emotionally healthy parent. You might be dealing with a parent who doesn't prioritize their children's emotional needs, and this means you have to strive to be the safe parent who's looking out for your child's well-being and making sure that they're happy, healthy, and emotionally developing correctly. Allow and encourage your children to express how they feel. No judgment. Pay attention to how the other parent inflicts emotional damage on your child and develop those strategies to address it appropriately and prevent it when it does occur. Parallel parenting, it happens when co-parenting doesn't work well. So even with the best tools and strategies for successfully co-parenting, it can be nearly impossible if they refuse to cooperate or compromise. So if this is your situation, really consider that parallel parenting as an alternative. So the difference is parallel parenting with your interactions with the other parent, they're extremely limited. You're really not involving others in this. Everybody's parenting plan is different. We want to create that parenting plan no matter who it is that we're working with as your co-parenter. You really need to put your children's best interests first. That was step one. Really coming up with a parenting plan that works. If it's not going to work, it's only going to be more stressful and unattainable. So there's no need to put a plan in place that looks great on paper if we really can't do it. Have a plan for the communication. How often are we going to communicate? What topics are we going to communicate? When do we respond to each other? Again, know how to make those big decisions if something comes up and how to handle that legal custody. The fifth step we talked about was really going over the expenses that you're going to have with your child, right? And who's going to be responsible for what types of payments. And then really maintain these goals, maintain this plan. Because if we don't maintain it, again, just like we've been stressing this whole topic, it's not going to be any benefit to your children or to the two of you if we set up a parenting plan that does not work. Think about what works best for your family. And don't forget to include birthdays and holidays that your family would celebrate, so we already know who's spending time with which parent, which hours on these days that we may end up needing to share and come off of a general custody parenting plan schedule. If I didn't get to answer your question or you would like to speak with me further, please visit familylawna.com. So I hope that you can enjoy it. Have a great day, and I hope that this was beneficial for you. Thanks again.